Okay, Likutei Torah, Yom Drushim for Yom Kippur, Samaches, second column, Eis Beis. Okay, the Alter Rebbe was, at the beginning of the Maamar, the Alter Rebbe asked, one pasuk says Shabbos Hulochem, Shabbat Shabbosein Hulochem, another pasuk says Hilochem, which one is the masculine and feminine? See, the Alter Rebbe started explaining that the concept of Shabbos, because Yom Kippur is Shabbos Shabbosein. So what is the level of Shabbos? He says Shabbos is the day that the Kreiches, that Hashem lowered himself into the Gashmistical world to create the world, goes back up to the source. And he says that's what happens in the Ruchniistic Inyan on Shabbos. It's not the level of Elokus, which is connected to creation. Rather, it's the level of Elokus, which is higher than creation. Okay, this is where we're up to now. So he says, Achine Amar Azal, the Gemara says, Misha Torah Ber Shabbos Yechol B'Shabbos. If one, in order to eat on Shabbos, this is simply what the Gemara means. In order to eat on Shabbos, you have to cook before Shabbos. Therefore, it says, Shabbos Lasis. Kleimar, Sheyishmer Michel L'Shabbos. A person has to guard during the weekday for Shabbos. You know, you have to be aware in the weekdays for Shabbos that you should have what to eat. Gam l'sakin atmi, that's in the physical sense. Also spiritually, to fix yourself, allows benafshes Shabbos. To create the atmosphere of Shabbos in the neshama, shebehem is kached, it should be a proper Shabbos. Vashmir azayis lasis Shabbos benafshe b'me'achol. How do you create Shabbos? In other words, like it says in other places that the Alter Rebbe is saying here, the level of Shabbos in Yemei HaChol is the level of Tefillah. And as every day there's a level of Shabbos. We say Yom Yom Rishon b'Shabbos, Yom Sheni b'Shabbos. There's a level of Shabbos every day. In fact, the Gemara said, Misha Torah Ber Shabbos Yechol b'Shabbos. It doesn't only mean Friday. The preparation of the 6 days of the week is the preparation for Shabbos. Yeah. So how do you find every day the preparation for Shabbos? He says that's the level of tefillah. How does tefillah get to Shabbos? He says, "B'tukunin there it says tefillah yasul mosavarta. V'reish magia shamayim u'malchei lekim yordem v'yordem v'yordem b'y." Because it says in Kabbalah that the level of Sulam of Yaakov Avinu's dream is the level of tefillah. Why the malachim go up and down? It's aliyah v'yarida. And mitzvot, the malach elikim are the mitzvahs which are malachim shluchim the malka. It says in Tanchuma. Like it said in Medrash Tanchuma says mechabden es mitzvahs sheim shluchai. It says in Medrash Hashem says honor my mitzvahs because they're my messengers. That means mitzvahs are basically the shluchim of Hashem. So he says, what does it mean? Malach elikim olim v'yordim. That represents the level of mitzvahs. Mekeiram, and what is the marker of mitzvahs? Say mivodim, the malk, are the 248 limbs of Hashem, which are al derech Moshe. What does it mean? Okay, it says in Zayar that the mitzvahs are the evodim of a malk, of the king. Yeah. So, like it says, the Malka, what is the purpose of a limb? Because if mitzvahs are likened to a limb, you have to understand what is a limb, and then we can understand why mitzvahs are called Evod. So he says like this, what's the purpose and function of an Evod, of a limb? Mispashet and neshama. The neshama reveals itself to accomplish what it needs to accomplish. If you want to talk, the neshama wants to talk, so it needs the keli to be able to talk. What is the keli? The mouth. You want to see, it's the eyes. You want to write it, whatever it is. The same thing, mitzvahs are the way Hashem reveals himself in the world. And therefore the mitzvahs elevate themselves higher through the level of tefillah. In other words, like this. That's the level sulam motivato. And the malachim are olim v'yardin have an aliyah. In other words, like this. A limb, the function of a limb is to take a particular koyach of the nefesh that the nefesh has, Let's say the nefesh has a koyach hariyah. The nefesh could see. That nefesh cannot function if it doesn't have a gashmiistic limb. Right? So therefore the eye becomes the keli for the eye to see. If Elokus wants to reveal itself in the world, it needs a keli to have, like just like the limb is a keli for sight, the mitzvah is a keli for that particular level of Elokus in the world. And that's why Chassidus and Kabbalah explain why the 248 mitzvahs. Why not 241, 230, 220, what's the cheshbon 248? Because there's 248 different hamshachas of Elokus that need to come into the world. And every mitzvah is that particular keli for that particular gilui and revelation and manifestation of Elokus. What? So then, just like you have Evarim Klolium and Evarim Pratim, so the same thing in mitzvahs. You have general mitzvahs, Shabbos, Kashrus, Mikveh, things like that. But you have the detailed mitzvahs. But the detailed mitzvahs are just as important as the regular mitzvah, because you still need the hamshach of that particular gilui of Elokus into the world.
So nowadays that we can't do a lot of the mitzvahs, we can't get that revelation in the world, or?
Then nowadays it means that we don't need that revelation, or the revelations that happened from the earlier times are beneficial for today. The fact that we can't do those mitzvahs means those mitzvahs, the gilui of those mitzvahs either are lacking in the world. Like for instance, all the mitzvahs have to do with the Beis HaMikdash. There's a lot of mitzvahs, the kabbanas, Beis HaMikdash, Tumah, V'tara, we don't have today. So we're talking lacking those giluyim that we don't have. Or to a certain extent, the world is able to exist without those giluyim. Mashiach come, we're going to have him back again, all the mitzvahs, and therefore the giluyim will be on a much greater level. Well, the Vari in Yinzeh, to explain what this means, that mitzvahs, the malachim are called mitzvahs, and the mitzvahs have to be elevated. In the Amar Chazal tiknu le'mekayim called mitzvah. Chazal Anshe Knesset Sagdela established before each mitzvah to say Asher Kidshanu b'mitzvah, that Hashem sanctified us with the mitzvahs, meaning Shaidei HaMitzvahs Misalim Mekedish Elyon. We say Hashem sanctified us with the mitzvahs, which means that through the mitzvah a Jew becomes holy, connected to Hashem. Well, what does it mean? The Hinek says in the pasuk, Ani kebereish ra'anon. I'm like, Hashem says, I'm like a slingshot. Peter, we learned this in another Maamar also, that Rabbi says the same concept. Hashem says, I am like a slingshot. Now what's a slingshot? Bereishu min erez, okay, it's like a type of erez tree. Shadayin lo hiskin, it didn't get old yet, so it's still, you can bend it. It's not like a hard branch you can't bend. V'rach v'ranan, it's soft. Shubelechusei, shaz yechel l'keifei l'mato, then you can bend it down. Ubishvil shugaveya shabilonis. Because it's such a tall branch, erez is the tallest tree. Shema'nich in olav eizer dover. When you pour it on it, kshenif of lamata. When you bend it, bunch of the slingshot. No, everybody knows what a slingshot is. You bend it back, and then it shoots very high. And it goes back to its original strength. It elevates the thing to a very lofty place. So that's the concept of slingshot. Now Hashem says, I'm a slingshot. What does that mean? The level, it doesn't say Anechi Kevrei Shiranim. It says Ani Kevrei Shiranim. What does that mean? Ki yesh bechinas Anechi u bechinas Ani. There's two levels to say I in Hebrew. Anechi and Ani. Anechi is the level, Anechi Mishanechi, that's the level of Iskal Alma Diskasya. That's the hidden world. Right? Ano Nafshik Sovis Yavis. Anechi misha anechi d'leis ramas leibishum eis leibishum keis. Anechi represents the essence of Hashem. U'bechinas ani, with the level of ani, is a level of Torah mitzvahs bechinas lamata, a lower level kshamislabishim binyanim gashmi. When once it comes into gashmistika things, umagbilim inyanim, and then it limits the mitzvahs because all mitzvahs are limited. Every mitzvah is limited in time and place and size. Okay, tefillin you have to do a certain way, a certain size. Sukkah is a lulav, whatever it may be. Every mitzvah is connected to time and place. So he says like this: Anechi, it says in other places, because Anechi and Ani are the same words, except Anechi has a chav, which is kesser. So it's the higher level. Anechi mishanechi is a level of Elokus which is infinitely higher than the world. And then you have Ani. Ani is the way Hashem comes into the mitzvahs, into Torah mitzvahs. And Ani is a level of limitation, like he says, there has to be a revius, neitel yadayim. Okay, so he says, what's the level of, why is Ani k'verei shranon?
So when we say both atah,
No.
right?
Yeah, but the level of atah comes through the mitzvah into Havai Elokeinu, into Melech Haolam.
So that atah is equal to Anochi?
Yeah. And then it comes into Havai Elokeinu, Melech Haolam.
But we say Ani atah, you think that atah is the same level like Ani?
No, Anechi. So he says, "Kamashu brei." It's the Maamar brei. So this level of Elokus bends all the way down into world, into limitations of time and place of mitzvahs, and then only through the level of Ani, the slingshot, does it go into a much higher level. It goes all the way up to the source of everything. The same thing, just like it is in Kedusha, you have the same level in evil. It says, we won't say anymore, meaning, like it says, just like by mitzvahs, right? It's the pnimis of the Jew, elevates the mitzvahs. L'chein eim ne'melokeinu, she'uchkoyach hayuseinu, v'she'elav anachnu mishtachvu me'medim b'chinas bittul, right? What's the level of, the soul level of mitzvahs? Elokeinu, that the taka becomes ours. When we say the word Elokeinu, it means it's ours, it's mine, connected to me. The Yidden that live in Chutz La'aretz are like they're like, we're idol worshippers with purity, meaning so in other words, like this, when a person gives in to Gashmistika world, that's bowing to Avodah Zarah. So in Chutz La'aretz, that the Gush is tummy, Avira tummy, the Chutz La'aretz, the earth is tummy, the air is tummy, all that. So it says, so the same thing, just like in Kedusha. You have the level of K'vrei Shranon that shoots the Kedusha all the way up. You have that the same way in evil, it could shoot it all the way down. And that's what the Yid has to do. There's certain things, like says Yisrael, right? Megad for Shemesh, Megad Gerishirach, Rashi says there's certain fruits that grow from the sun, certain melons that grow from the moon. There is no grass down here. In other places, Mazel here, the Rebbe uses the word Keichav. Okay? There isn't a grass that doesn't have a mazel that hits it and says grow. Meaning, therefore, so therefore, when a person thinks only about Gashmiistic a thing. So, you know, the whole world is about Inyani Elam Hazeh, or made it Sichli Bereishim. You lower it, just like Hashem lowers himself into mitzvahs to fly high. A person in being have an opposite, they lower their head into evil. Ledava Nishba Mikil Chavim Mazalis, and then it becomes Elokeinu L'Maisi Yadeinu. Then it becomes Maisi Yadeinu Zeisek HaParnosa. Then it becomes Elokim Achedim. It becomes Avodah Zarah. So just like in Kedusha, the whole inyan is to become Elokeinu. In Avodah Zarah, it becomes Elokim Achedim. It depends.